We're often told that to reach our potential, we need to scale. We need automation, funnels, and efficiency. But what if the greatest unlock of human potential is actually the most inefficient thing you can do? In 2015, Rob Lawless decided to stop selling software and start investing in time with strangers, 1 hour, one-on-one, no agenda. Since then, he has sat across from over 7,400 humans. He's seen the raw, unedited version of humanity that most of us only glimpse in movies. But here's the real flip story. Somewhere between friend number 1 and friend 7,400, the project stopped being something Rob did, and it became who he is. Today, I'm joining the ranks. I'm officially friend 7,476. We're going to find out what happens to a man's soul when he makes connections his life's work, and whether the weight of the remaining 2,600 friends is a gift or a heavy burden. Rob, let's dive in. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Nice
on
to
the
meet
show,
you,
bud.
Dave. Yeah, thank you. It's 100% a gift. 100% a gift. And as have all the 70, almost 7,500 so far. It's been a gift. Yeah.
All right. So, why don't you start with kind of where we are right now, where you are, I think, and then we'll start to kind of work backwards and forwards. So maybe just kind of walk people through what you've been up to.
Yeah. So I started this mission in 2015 to spend 1 hour one-on-one with 10,000 different people. And I just believe that there's so much growth, there's so much innovation, so much awareness and gratitude in meeting the people around you. And it blows my mind that people walk by them every day and they don't connect with them because they're afraid to say hi to them, or that they don't think that they're worth their time. And I've always believed in the power of connection. I mean, I went to Catholic school, K through 12, but like grade school was excited to get to the high school that was going to have all the kids that I used to play against in sports. And my high school was small. We had 500 people total when I graduated. But then I was excited to go to Penn State, where I had intro finance classes that had more people than my entire high school. But like the student body was 40,000 people. To me, it was so exciting that I would get to know people, become friends with them, but then there'd always be new faces to get to know.
Right.
That well would never run dry for me. And I love the style of connecting with people in school. We're kids. It's so natural. Kids go up to each other on the playground. Hey, want to be my friend? Okay, now we're friends. And the contrast of that, I studied finance, went into consulting for Deloitte, and it's the total opposite. No one goes up to each other in the cubicle. Hey, want to be friends? It's, hey, I have this report that's due on Friday. I need it to get it. You need to get it to me yesterday. And just this thing that I experienced so much warmth and adventure through became very cold and calculated, and I struggled with that. So despite having like the great job on paper, I had a girlfriend that I met at school. Deloitte was going to pay for me to get my MBA full time. It just wasn't a path that I could see myself doing in the future. So left, went to a tech startup, and still felt that way when I was there, and decided, hey, let's meet 10,000 people one-on-one for 1 hour each. So yeah, you're the 7,476th person that I've met. I was laid off. I started it in November 2015. I was laid off of my tech startup job 8 months later. So I've been doing this full time since June of 2016. I've lived in Philly, I lived in LA, I lived in Hoboken. And in 2021, I got into keynote speaking. So I found the way to create this into a financially stable life.
Yep.
And yeah, so now
I want to come back to
like
that.
four new people every day, at least trying to, and then I'm speaking as often as I can all around the country in different parts of the world. So that's where we're at today. But yeah, dive into it.
So awesome! What a fun journey! Just an amazing set of flips, and I want to get into all of it because I'm just absolutely fascinated by this. So let's kind of work a little bit backwards, forwards, and in between. So when you kind of started this thing, you were at friend number 1. What's going on in your head? Is this like a real thing, or is this like, I think I'm going to try this and see what happens, or what's kind of where is your headspace at the very beginning?
Yeah, friend number 1 happened November 11th of 2015, and I think I contacted him in September of 2015. So it was like 2 months just from contact to get the initial meeting set up. And he ran a website called billypen.com here in Philadelphia. And this website had a who's next list of like who's next in the culinary scene, who's next in the art scene, who's next in the political scene. And I was doing outbound sales, so I was used to finding people's emails and shooting them a message and saying, "Hey, can I spend 30 minutes with you?" So I just kind of carried those skills over into this. But I sought him out just because I was like, "Hey, you have this Who's Next bash where you're planning to bring all these people together. I think I'm going to attend it." So I figured, why not invite you to be part of the project? And he thought that I had already met like 1,000 people,
Right.
thankfully. So yeah, he ended up just being the first person. But I think, yeah, at that time it was like I had first thought of this in January of 2014 while I was at Deloitte. I knew that I
Mhm.
was missing that human connection. I wrote it down in my iPhone notes, and it's one of those ideas that just didn't go away. And I paid
Right.
attention to that fact. And I just had a moment of inspiration that summer of 2015. I had written a journal entry where I said my ability to meet people is what will take me to where I want to be. And I didn't really know what I meant by that, but when I read it, that idea popped back into my mind and it gave me a window of inspiration to take action. And for whatever reason, I just took action at that time. And so, yeah, it was, I wish I could go back and do number one again, or like feel what my mindset was at. Cause now
Right.
it's very routine for me to connect with people in a
Right.
good way. Like I don't fear it. I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable with it. But yeah, I had nothing. I didn't have an Instagram account at that point.
Sure.
I waited until I met 8 people to start the account. And then once I met 8 people, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go all the way to 10,000. So yeah, it was just the stakes were so low. Like if I
Yeah.
met him and it went poorly, no one knew I was trying to work on it. Like so, yeah, it was very comfortable and it was a positive experience. So it inspired me to keep it going.
Just that one, huh? If that one had gone sour, do you think you would have kept going?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because I'm just so interested in connection, and part of the project is just throwing on the seatbelt and going for the ride. Like you can't expect every meeting to go well, or I don't know, the definition of what goes well with the meeting is even interesting because to me is like you're just there to spend an hour with that person.
Right.
Wherever the conversation goes, it goes. You're you're there for the experience, which is so different from this transactional networking that everyone is so used to, where they're like, okay, if we're not trending towards this deal closing, then why are we spending time together? Whereas I had total freedom. And like, I don't know, we could talk about whatever, and
Right.
it's still the right answer.
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for that, and clearly, um, you have a lot to say about that. So we're gonna kind of get into that too. So, okay, so you're pretty. I'd say you're 3/4 of the way in, right? I'm almost at 3/4. I'm almost
Yes.
guess number 3/4.
Yes.
Just passed. And do you feel at this point do you feel an obligation to finish, or is it a joy, or keep going? What's going on in your headspace now from 1 to 7,500?
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel an obligation to finish because I feel like it insinuates like, oh,
Yeah,
I have to do the rest of this.
yeah,
Like I'm excited to do the rest of it. So I'm not. I don't feel like I have to finish. I'm like intrinsically motivated to finish because I enjoy it. I always tell people if I played the lottery today and I won tomorrow, next week I would show up and I'd have my meetings for this project because I just think there's a word from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. It's called onism. It's a fake word, but it's defined as the awareness of how little of the world you'll experience. And if you really think about that, I gained a better understanding of that as I started to meet people who were outside of my sphere of relevance. And it made me realize how big the world is. And I only have like 80 years on average to take advantage of it. So, and the best way that I know to expand my experience is to connect with others about theirs. So that's what I want to do with my free time. I think once I finish the project, which should be like 5 years from now, I'll continue to meet people one on one. I don't know if I'll do like 4 people a day, but maybe 4 people a week. But I certainly don't want to just stop meeting new people because one, you're keeping that empathy muscle in check, like you're keeping it worked out all the time. And two, it's how I find new music that I don't already know about. It's how I am exposed to paths that make me grateful about my own. It's how I find new books, new movies, different ways that people are approaching business. So it's the greatest teacher that I've had in my life. So I don't want to lose that.
I get that. I
Mhm.
I can say from this show, I get that very well.
For
You're doing
sure.
it at a next level, which is really neat. Um, and so you talk about this kind of seeing the universe, experiencing the universe. Do you feel you have like this big internal clock and this internal energy to experience as much as you can, or do you feel like you're going so fast that you might be missing the forest for the trees? I don't even know how to kind of totally phrase that question, but I kind of get what you're going for, and I'm just kind of
Yeah.
curious.
No, I feel comfortable with my path. Like that's the thing because I am meeting new people so often. I feel like I am taking advantage of it. Like I feel like I'm not missing out, but I very much, and I have different personality. I have a different risk tolerance
Yeah.
than other people. So for me, being in Deloitte consulting was very tough. I was like, I can see the path ahead of me, consultant, senior consultant, manager, partner, principal, director. If I do really well this year, I can't skip from consultant to director. Like I can't make the jumps that I could make in entrepreneurship.
Yep.
So I think I've always been destined to do my own path and um, meeting with people by by having it a routine part of my life through the project. I just feel like I'm getting that connection. Like oddly enough, I'm not the type of person to always talk to the person next to me on a flight because while I do think there's a ton of value in that, I've had great conversations with some people next to me on a flight because I'm meeting people so often in my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm hitting my workout even if I don't have this conversation. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah,
I want to come back to the Deloitte kind of piece. Not so much Deloitte. I mean,
sure.
fine, it's good for you know. I think a lot of people have their version of Deloitte, right? They kind of they go to school, they get the degree, they they get the job that's next to the degree, that's the total right next job based on the degree. They've kind of put in all that work all the way from middle school to high school to college. Um, and I think a lot of people are kind of going to be fascinated on how did you, so you leave Deloitte, you get this other job at this startup. You then, how did you decide, well, I'm not doing that. I'm going to totally pivot and I'm going to get into something else. And this something else is something that I personally really am passionate about. And it might sound a little crazy, but I'm going to go do it.
S- So there was overlap. So and yeah, Deloitte. That's why I say I think I have a different risk tolerance because my starting salary at Deloitte was 72,500, and I had a $10,000 sign-on bonus. And if you stay for 1 year, you keep 5,000. If you stay for 2 years, you keep the 10,000. I left after a year and 3 months, and had to pay $5,000 back. And I always thought that I like almost made the same amount of money at the tech startup because I thought my base salary there was like 55, and then they said that it'd be like $20,000 in commission. Until I went and looked at my offer earlier, like last year, my base was 35,000 plus expected 20,000 commission. So I took a $20,000 pay cut to go to this tech startup. And like my parents thought that that was a bad move. People around me couldn't understand why you would do that. But again, it was just the Deloitte. I felt like I was stuck on this like slow climbing of the ladder. Whereas at the startup, it could take off like a rocket ship. It was in the data analytics space. I was doing sales. I was like their 80th employee. They had 24 million in funding. So it just felt more exciting. And I also felt like I had more control and more influence in that environment than the red tape of Deloitte, where things are done this way because that's how they've always been done.
Sure.
Just didn't work with my creativity. So took this big change to go to the startup. But when I was at the startup was when I decided to do this project just because it was this idea that wouldn't go away. So the first 8 months, I was working full time at the tech startup while doing this. So I didn't like quit Deloitte to do my project full time. I didn't quit the startup to do the project full time. I had started this, was doing it after work and on the weekends. And then 8 months in, when I had met about 100 people, the company was acquired. So I was laid off. So I had a decision to either go back into a consulting job, try to find a new startup job, or take a bet on myself. And at that time, I was like, I'll do it for full time for 2 to 3 months. And if it's going well, I'll continue. And if not, I'll just go back to Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, whatever. But then 2 to 3 months comes and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to push it 4 more months. And then I ended up having a friend in LA who said he could host me. So I was like, okay, I'll go out to LA and something has to happen there. And if nothing happens, then I'll come back to Philly and I'll get a full time job.
Right.
And then nothing crazy happened, but I just deepened my commitment to it. And then at a certain point, like I would describe it when you're waiting at the bus stop and you could walk to your destination or you could take the bus. And the bus is shorter. And then the bus is a little late and you're like, oh, should I walk? But then it comes a certain point that you're just committed to the bus because to walk would be the wrong decision. So I just committed to the bus and hoped that eventually there would be a way for me to turn this into my path, which did happen.
So do you think you were doing some, like you knew you were going to, in the back of your mind, this was the path and you were just trying to negotiate with yourself on different bus schedules, as it were, or was it really kind of 2 to 3 months and then, well, I'm really maybe not making the quote money, but I'm living the life and I'm feeling super fulfilled and this is amazing and I'm going to keep going. What?
Yeah, it was the latter. And I
Yeah.
think me convincing, well, I wasn't convincing myself of the bus schedule, it was more the people around me.
And what was their reaction? I was kind of curious about that because it's easy to see right now. It was obviously a great choice, but in the moment, guest 100, you move to LA.
Yeah.
Seems, I know, we're in LA, by the way. Did you live?
Long Beach?
Okay. I lived in LA for about 15 years.
Oh, nice. Where at?
I was in Hollywood
Okay.
for half of the time and Pico and La Cienega for the other half. So
Oh, okay.
kind
Yeah.
of as I got more stable, Pico and La Cienega and met my wife and what have
Nice.
you. So
Yeah. Yeah. I've been all over the city in different coffee shops and parks meeting
yeah,
people. So got to know the city very well. But
it's a neat city. Okay,
yeah,
so sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted there, but so what's the environment around you now? So you're in this kind of wandering space. You're probably guessed up to what, 1,000 is my guess at this point.
when I moved to LA,
Yeah.
yeah, when I, yeah, so took it full time. People were like, what are you doing with your life? My parents, especially, said, you can't do this. You have to get a full time job. And I mean, this is early. It's like 2015. Well, I guess I took it full time June of 2016.
Yeah.
So the creator economy is such a thing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back then, it was just becoming apparent that it was going to be part of the future.
It was early. Yep.
But I believed in that, and I could see, and I think back then it was so much more pure. Like this was pre people fabricating lifestyles to try to build followings, and I just saw people doing things that they were passionate about, and thought that I could document the thing that I was passionate about, and then that would lead to social media partnerships. But it wasn't playing out that way, partially because I was so committed to the authenticity of what I was doing. Like I wasn't meeting people to get the
Right.
attention of a brand.
Yep.
I was meeting people in the way that I authentically enjoyed it and then just documenting it. But yeah, I moved to LA. I had to move back in with my parents at 27 years old with no job, no income, no
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Fun.
Yeah.
What do your parents do, if you don't mind me asking?
My dad worked for Verizon for 35 years, doing like software development. And then my mom worked in a local elementary school in the cafeteria. So she was like stay at home mom and then would
Uh-huh.
be part time there. So yeah,
Those
great.
must have been some amazing dinner conversations. So, Rob, how's it going?
Oh yeah, like
When you
in the
move
time.
back? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they come from a generation where like it matters what people think about you, right? And it's so easy for them to tell their friends, my son is working for Deloitte Consulting, because immediately people put you in a box of success. And I feel bad. Like you tell them, oh, my son is doing this thing. He's going to meet 10,000 people. There's no real agenda behind it. And people are like, what is he? Is he living in the basement playing video games? What is he doing? So I think there was just a lack of understanding from other people's perspective, and that trickled down into my parents' like insecurity about my path. So yeah, I was highly encouraged to stop this project and to get a job multiple times throughout. But my brother was really supportive. My friends, like the one in LA, he hosted me, didn't charge me rent when I lived out there. The people that I was meeting through the journey always thought it was very inspiring. So I had balance in the doubt and support. But yeah, it was a challenge. I mean, and I always was my biggest fan, and I still am my biggest fan. Like, no, I don't think anyone thinks my project is cooler than I do, which I think is important because at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to push it forward.
It's your journey.
Yeah.
You know, not to get off topic, but the original concept for this very show was very much in line with the what you're doing,
Mm,
in that I came from Media 1.0. I was probably pretty early on social. In fact, I know I was. Um, Social as a business, social as a concept, using social tools, and what I observed from 1.0 to 2.0, which was the central original thesis, was, how do people do this? And how in the world do they think they're allowed to do this? And yet in 2.0, they're absolutely not only allowed, they're empowered. They 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 can take the journey on their own in their own hands, and they can go for it. And I think that's just fascinating, and it's just utterly awesome. And to your kind of comment on the generalized modern day influencer, yeah, I too am a little troubled by that kind of space, if you will. But I think it's awesome. I get it, and you were. I could see why there was so much pressure to conform, and you were definitely ahead of the curve.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because it's a path that's available to people. Like if they want to be a YouTuber, TikToker, Instagram, like it's it's available. They can do it, and if they do the thing that catches people's attention, they can create a really bright future for themselves out of that.
And that used to be limited, so limited to just the linear kind of channels. And now with digital, it's just scaled, and you can connect with so many audiences. I'm a big, big fan of The World is Big.
Mhm,
And you don't have to connect with everybody. You can connect at a global scale with a small group of people that's still very meaningful, very powerful, and even in its own right has some significant scale and
mhm.
community and tribe. And so it's it's uh it's neat. So I want to kind of get into some of that
Yeah.
with you, of kind of how you've kind of gotten there. But I think, up next, I'd love to kind of talk about you as kind of to start to shift into some of the journey you're in now. So you're at 7,400 folks that you've met one on one. Um, and maybe this isn't a fair question, but every single human wants to share something. They may not be as comfortable as, say, you to show up and do these conversations, but I guess, you've had all these moments, and there are a lot of them. Any universal truths that you've kind of discovered about people that you want to share?
The biggest one I've seen is no one really knows what they're doing with their lives. Everyone's just doing the best they can with the resources that they have, which is it's so true and it's so human, but it's something that people so often struggle with because of and comparison culture exists with social media and whatnot, but it existed 2 generations ago. Like keeping up with the Joneses didn't become a phrase when social media happened. So I think people have always been trying to keep up with each other's highlight reels and then burying their own insecurities and uncertainties and pretending that they don't exist. And maybe that's one of the biggest eye opening things for me is that every person no matter what their background, no matter what their level of success, no matter how much money they make, they have insecurities and they have uncertainties. So I think just to be able to acknowledge that in other people and then be able to acknowledge it in myself, like to not fear it or feel embarrassed by it. There's so many things that I don't have the answers to in my life. I'm doing well with speaking, but I'm not. I didn't double the amount of gigs this year that I did last year. I'd like to do that, but I haven't quite figured out the path of doing that yet.
Right.
I would love to have a wife and kids in the future. I'm single right now, so that's a path that I'm still trying to figure out who my future wife is going to be. And but I don't feel bad about that because I'm like, again, this life is kind of a sandbox, and I think so many people are taught that you have to decide who you are by 22 years old, and then succeed linearly on that scale. And if you don't, you're not doing well. But it's like life is it's like the stock market. Just look at the
Yeah.
S&P 500. If your life mirrors that emotional pattern, like you're doing pretty well. But that includes a lot of dips along the way.
There are some big contours to life. I
Hmm.
can say for everybody. Um, well, that's neat. So when you think about, part of what you're speaking on, I mean, I went through your website. I want to talk a little bit about Rob 10K and Rob Lawless, but I guess before we get to that, the business of Rob, as it were, because I think that is fascinating. Like, a lot of people are going to be super interested in just kind of maybe their own journey of they're going to leave their Deloitte, they're going to get into their own wild idea.
Hmm.
But before we get there, I wanted to ask, just to stay in current show a little bit longer. So you meet all these people. Do you have like a networking hack for entrepreneurs? What are they getting wrong? I think you kind of alluded to the like kind of the Deloitte experience of
Hmm.
how people suck at meeting people, or when do we lose that? How do we rebuild that? I'm not even sure what the question I'm driving towards is in terms of establishing relationship, but talking to an expert. So go ahead.
I mean, so my hack has been to set a goal to meet 10,000 people one on one for 1 hour each because I don't have an agenda to sit down with people, but I have an excuse. Like there's some type of context to where people feel like, okay, I'm number 7,476. I'm helping him towards his goal. And I've seen other people succeed with this too. I think the issue when we get into the professional world is we just get so used to transactional connection. And then suddenly we're only connecting with people when we're out of a job and we need a new one, or we're doing business development. So we're going to a networking group to exchange business cards. But like they've done the studies where the Harvard study of adult development said that the biggest predictor of our long-term health and happiness is our ability to cultivate warm relationships of all different kinds. So to me, that says like, oh, okay, like meeting people is healthy, like going to the gym is healthy. Meeting people is healthy, like reading a book is healthy. Meeting people is healthy, like having a balanced diet is healthy. So I want to make that a routine, habitual part of my life. Now, I try to think back to what would Deloitte me do when it came to connection if he was busy today with working 100-hour work weeks or whatever. I would still try to meet one new person every month in that stage. Like today, I'd be like, you can set aside 1 hour a month to meet someone new. And I think if you set that as a goal for yourself, that's the first step because then it's not a matter of when am I going to do this or how am I going to do that. It just becomes who am I going to fill that hour with? And like you said, you can connect with people all over the world that have similar interests to you. It doesn't have to be a huge network. It could be a small network around a niche interest. So you could connect with one person from your church every month, or you could connect with one person from a Dungeons and Dragons group if you're into that. You could connect with someone who's also a fan of the band Goose, whatever it might be. But and a good example of this is Brian Grazer. He has a great book called A Curious Mind. He's a Hollywood producer. He did the 24 series, 8 Mile, American Gangster. So every 2 weeks throughout his career, he's had a curiosity conversation with someone outside of the film industry who inspires him. And there's a great page in the book where he's like, investing your time in people is like investing in a mutual fund. you're just doing it consistently over a wide range of space and topics and people. And some of those conversations are going to hit right away and you'll see that value in the moment.
Yep.
Some of them will appear not valuable in the moment, but they will serve you really well 10 years down the road. Maybe some won't serve you at all, but you just continue to invest confident that it's the right thing to do. So for me, the hack is like one person a month. Just and it's compound interest, but it's just compound human interest.
I love that. I want to get to the other side of that. Um, on the It feels hyper compelling. I mean, I get that, and I love this idea of meeting people is healthy, and it absolutely. I think intuitively, when somebody hears that, they understand it. They can relate to it. They don't. There's no. I don't think there's a lot of inherent resistance to hearing that. But on the other side, um, why are people so lonely? Why is it so hard for people to go and do that? You've kind of you know you have some perspective on that, I'm sure.
Hmm. Why are people so lonely? I think it's a combination of factors. I think technology has made it easy to feel like you're connected when you're not really connected. In the same way that maybe you feel like you're filling your stomach if you're eating just candy, but it's not the right diet. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think COVID is a big contributing factor to it. I think COVID stopped the inertia of connection for a lot of people. So a body that was in motion came to rest, and now the body at rest wants to stay at rest. And so I think a lot of people haven't pushed themselves in ways that maybe they were doing pre-COVID when it came to connecting with people because they're just content hanging in on the weekends now or whatever. And I think it's also when we get out into the professional world because the majority of connection is agenda driven. A lot of people think that everyone's friend group is set in stone and that no one wants to make new friends and that they're the only one who wants to go out and meet new people when it's like everyone is having the same thought individually. So they're just not connecting around it. Um, I think that's three of the big things for me.
Hmm.
But I think probably the technology I would think is the biggest driving factor.
Yeah, I could see that. And I guess just a final question on in this kind of space, why do you think it's so hard for adults to make new friends? You're kinda in this, you're by looking through most of the people you've been connecting with, they're I think we can say adults. I saw, like, a few young people, but for the most part, it's people 20 plus. If I'm just gonna kinda categorize it, I would call everybody above 20 an adult. Why do you think it's
Hmm.
so hard?
I think it's a time thing and I think it's an environment thing. They say it takes 90 hours with someone to truly feel like they're a friend of yours. So, and the way I see it, I'm opening the door. I'm doing 1 hour with all these different people, and then we can kind of chip away towards that 90 hours for the
Yeah.
rest of it. But like, think in college, for example, when you live 2 blocks away from your friend and you're seeing him every Thursday and Friday night, or you're at the club, like in the activity you do together 2 days a week or whatever, it's just so much easier to get to that 90 hours. So I think time is a product of it, which is interesting because you're with the people that you work at with
Right.
a lot, right? But I think the second piece is the environment. Like in college, especially as a first year student, everyone is in a shared state of vulnerability. And I think people can recapture that sense of vulnerability when they travel. That's why people travel and they come back with the story of, oh, we met this couple on this tour and they were so nice and we spent the whole day with them and this and that. Because you're just like your guard is down, you're breaking away from the mold of everyday life. But so we don't have that vulnerability in the workplace because there people think, okay, well, work is work and home is home. And if you share who you are authentically at work, they're going to weaponize it against you. And it's a whole different conversation about building workplace cultures. But I think you have to have the time and the vulnerability to do it. And I think a lot of people struggle to have both of those at the same time.
That makes sense. I appreciate your perspective. It's obviously this is a space you've put a lot of thought and energy into, so it's really neat to talk with you about these things. These aren't
Yeah.
necessarily, I kinda like soft backpedal on them, but I don't live in this universe to the way you do, so it's neat. Um, can I ask some business questions of the business of Rob? We won't talk dollars and cents, but I think for the audience, there's for me, and I think for everyone, there's probably a lot of good curiosity of how do you go from episode 1000 um, to the map you're kind of running now, where you're fairly, you seem pretty well established, more than fairly. You got speaking gigs. You sounds like you're doing some consulting on this space for business and how organizations can kind of improve on this. Um, when did you think this was? When I guess in the journey of episode 1 to X, when did you start to really begin to have a good journey in terms of how this is going to be a functional business for Rob in addition to an amazing project?
I felt financially stable for the first time 2 years ago,
Right.
and I've been on the journey for just over 10 years. So
Hmm.
8 years into it. I mean, the first time I made money through it was March, November of 2016, I think. And then March of 2017, I had another partnership. So,
Yeah.
like, and back then, so I guess the first time I made money for it through it was like a year after I started. But I had asked the co-founder of the company that laid me off to sponsor me, and he said no. And he said I can't give like company marketing funds to you. But he said, I'll just personally sponsor you. I'll give you like $200. But then I tagged his company in every post for that month, presented this month by Stitch Data, to try to, just because I thought as I was growing, then a lot of people just loved the goodwill of what I was doing. And I thought that it would extend that goodwill to the company that was supporting me. So in March of 2017, I had a mom and pop pharmacy called Fishtown Pharmacy. The guy was just part of my journey. And he said, I wish I could support you. And I said, you can. And so that led to him giving me $300 for the month of March of 2017. And then because I was tagging him, this urgent care center, Vibe Urgent Care, and that was new to Philly, said, what's the deal with your partnership? And I said, I'm trying to have people give me like a rate for the month. And he said, I'll be your partner for next month. And then my dentist, who was part of my project, said, why didn't you ask me? I would have partnered with you. And so then he became the next month. And then a leadership program that I was invited to because of my project sponsored me for the following month. So did these people ever see a return on that money? Probably not, but they were rooting for me,
Yeah.
and like it felt good for them to kind of help push it forward. So I was doing that, but then I went to LA, and it's hard to find sponsors in LA when my entire following was from Philly. So
Right.
it just kind of like threw things off. But fast forward to 2018, I was on Ryan Seacrest's radio show, and then I took that audio, and because I'd worked in sales before, I sent that to the head of partnerships at WeWork, and I said, "Hey, I've met a lot of people at your locations. Like, your values are community and entrepreneurship. It's exactly what I'm doing. Here's Ryan Seacrest talking about my project and how cool it is.
Right.
Can we do a partnership?" And so they said, "Yeah, you can promote us for free for a month, and if we like you, then we'll pay you." So I told my people, like, "Hey, I'm doing this free partnership with WeWork. If you guys want to support me, follow along with their page." And so a lot of people did that. So they said, okay, we'll do a 3 month partnership with you. And then they re upped it to another 6 months. But in the time of that first 3 months, I met this girl who was a keynote speaker, Michelle Poehler. And she was like, you could definitely go into keynote speaking. You've got this traditional press. I was just about to be on Kelly Clarkson's talk show at that point.
Right.
She said, you got this unique story. And so March of 2020 happens. My WeWork partnership ended March 11th of 2020. And then I just realized like a lot of people were messaging me during that time. I have this business, we're struggling. Can you share about this initiative that we're doing? And I was like, okay, well, I'm struggling too, but no one's asking me like, how can we help you? And so
Right.
I didn't want to ask companies like, hey, we're all struggling. Can you send me money to partner with you during this time? And so I was just like, I'll put my head down. I'll continue to meet people. And then in December, well, I guess that fall of 2020, Emory University reached out to me to do a TEDx talk. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to tell people in December of 2020, I started having an online seminar to teach people how I got to know people. And I said, I'll just connect you with other people from around the world. It's like join the Zoom call. It'll be Sunday from 1 to 2:30. And I just asked people to donate what they felt the value was. And in 2 months, I made $1,000 from donations and got, more importantly, testimonials from people. And then people started to be like, oh, Rob's doing this thing. So one of the
Right.
girls who attended that said, can you do this for the University of Washington? They have a global business case competition. So that became my first paid speaking engagement in April of 2021. And then as I'm posting about these things, people are like, oh, yeah, I always thought it would be cool for you to speak at my company. It'd be cool to speak here. So these opportunities just started to pop up. And in COVID, people couldn't connect with each other. So they were searching for speakers that were talking about connection, that were talking about belonging and inclusion. So I was just well positioned to talk about it. And as I put it out into the world, like, hey, I'm trying to book 10 gigs by August, people said, oh, talk to my school, talk to my company. So that's how I got my early gigs. And then I started to apply to conferences where I felt my message was a good fit and human resources seemed like a accurate, aligned topic. So I
Right.
applied to SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, and they brought me on. I've spoken at one of their big conferences every year over the last 4 years at this point, and that has always led to paid gigs for me. People
Yeah.
nowadays just they take to my message and yeah, just kind of like the ripple effects of putting in the work uh and then I got a manager that I met through a speaker boot camp that I invested in because of someone that I had met through my journey, and like that helped me go to another level. So yeah, that's kind of, and we can talk through the details of any part of it, but yeah, I've now to date done 93 paid speeches. The furthest place that I've spoken in was Bangalore, India. I've spoken in Berlin, Germany, spoke on a 6-day cruise in the Caribbean, spoken all across the US. The largest crowd was 26,000 people, which was a high school conference for DECA down in Orlando. So the resume is getting built up now, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's unbelievable. That's just absolutely wonderful. So you had definitely some lean years, some wander years, and side hustles during that, or how did you support yourself?
by not paying, like not buying anything, which is yeah, really interesting because I was staying either with my friend in Los Angeles who was just hosting me, and then I would come back and stay with my parents. But yeah, people like they look at your life during that time and they assume that you're having the same spending habits as they are. And they're like, how do you afford to do this? This is crazy.
You just don't do it.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I go to a coffee shop and I let the person go ahead of me. They order a coffee. I say, okay, I'm just going to get water because I had coffee at the last spot. And so it's like the price of admission. We can get 1 cup of coffee. I'll sit there with my water. In LA, it's like I'm not parking in the paid parking. I'm parking 3 blocks back, and then I'm walking to that space. So there, or like driving across the country. I've driven across the country 6 different times, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not using the toll roads, and it might add an hour, but is an hour worth the gas? And like doing those calculations and just being very resourceful. I mean, I'm still that way. The shorts I have on right now are $10 shorts that I got from Gap because I reached out to them asking if they wanted to partner with me. And they said, no, but we'll give you $300 in gift cards. So that became all my clothes were Gap. This shirt is a free shirt that I got from MCL Construction because I spoke at their event last January, or I think it was last January. But I just became very resort. Like I could stretch $500 like 3 months, and I
Right.
felt the weight of that the entire, like every cup of coffee felt like someone putting like another 2 pounds on my shoulders.
Hmm. I get that. I get that. That's a really intense amount of sacrifice around a vision. It's just hearing the story. It just me hearing it. It feels really good to hear some of the success you're achieving now. So
Mm.
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. It feels good to be there too. It's
I'm
definitely,
sure. Yeah,
yeah,
you've gone through it, and you've kind of seen kind of a lot of journey. You met a
for
lot of
sure,
people, and so that even in itself, um, you carry those stories with you. How do you kind of get past all that? Like I know when I meet a lot of people, I can't sleep. I can't imagine meeting 7,500 people. I'd be like just wide awake all the time.
I think I can compartmentalize it pretty well, like a doctor would. For me, maybe for you too, because you get to do the podcast. But I think one of the things that helps me is I'm meeting with someone, I'm hearing their story, but then I'm writing about it, and then I'm putting it out into the world. And I'm not writing everything that people tell me. I think that's one of the cool things. There's like this unwritten trust
Yeah.
that I know what is and what is not okay to put out there for people. And yeah, I think like put just coming the input and then the output has been very helpful. And I think I've just realized maybe it's just a product of sitting with so many different people. Like they're not telling me these things because they want me to solve them in their life. They're just telling me because it's a fact of the makeup of who they are. And I've gotten good at holding space for people. I've had many people cry with me. I've cried with them multiple times. And like you give people the power and the space to like take back control of their emotions, and they typically do it. Like I always say, you can see when they're crying, you can see the whites return to their eyes, and you're like, okay, I know they're gonna reel it back in now.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, and I think it's just my perception of life too. Is that life is both beautiful and very difficult, and it's not fair. It's not this Disney movie that we're taught it's going to be. And so I've kind of adjusted my expectations for life to be that way. And I think that just helps me weather hearing the negative sides too, because I'm like, okay, this is a more accurate picture of what life is, so it doesn't shock me as much.
Right. There's a lot of strength in the adversity.
For sure.
Life is hard.
Yeah,
I think, particularly here in the West, if you will, it's got moments where it's you don't even realize how how hard it can be.
for sure.
Um, Neat, unbelievable. So when you when you think about your life right now, you're sitting there, you're at episode 7,500. Does it what how does it look? How do you think episode 1 Rob would be viewing kind of where episode 7,500 Rob is?
I'd be happy. It's funny that you call it episode, like, because
Yeah.
it's not a show. Like it's not. It's just like
It's a
me.
conversation, but sure, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a TV guy, so I think in
yeah, yeah.
episodes.
It's so fun. It's funny because I've always been. I've had people when I'm talking with them, they're like, "Oh, on your show," or they're like, "For anyone watching," because I post a 1 minute clip of
Yeah,
people, and people say, "For anyone who's watching this," like, and I'm like, "Oh, it's not. No one's watching it
right.
because it won't be the 1 minute clip I choose." But I think he would just be proud. I think he severely underestimated how long it was going to take to get to a point of stability, and I think he underestimated. Like people are always like, "Oh, did you ever think it was going to get this big?" Like, yeah, I thought it was going to get much bigger than it is
Yeah,
because I just always thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But I he underestimated too how much he would learn in terms of his awareness and how like the journey of gaining wealth from the project was not in the speaking and the money from that. It was in the realizing that I have time with my parents while I still have them, realizing like the importance of my relationship with my friends, realizing how lucky I was to grow up in a loving two-parent household and have the opportunity to go to Penn State. It's like the gifts were already there. I just
right.
didn't know. And so this revealed them to me, which I think is really important. Uh, And it was an interesting shift because I did become a much more content person where I no longer felt the need to like go have this crazy adventure in a different country. And part of me wants to get back to that. Like, okay, well, we don't have to not have that. You can have that. You can have both of them. But yeah, I think he just like underestimated how wholesome and fulfilling it would be as opposed to like crazy and adventurous, if that makes sense.
It totally does. And good for you for being able to appreciate that. And
Hmm.
even if episode or interview or story one, you didn't necessarily appreciate that. That sounds like a pretty amazing internal journey in addition
Hmm.
to the overall physicality of what you've been doing.
For sure.
Um, all right. I got a final kind of area. We have a segment on the Flip Story, which is the Flip Story recipe book. And I invite all of our guests, and I'd like to invite you to include your recipe for, you know, what are those key ingredients? What maybe is the how it comes together, and whatever the final product is that you want to kind of share. Um, Love to hear it.
A recipe for the
You decide. For your, it could be for how to make friends. It could be for how to um, avoid loneliness. It could be how to connect with people. You've probably got some secret sauce ingredients that love to just kind of capture.
yeah. There, I'll do. It's a the recipe for connecting with people. I really just put in for a potential opportunity to lead a workshop on active listening. And when I meet with people in person, I never take notes or anything. And then I just write their story from memory. And a lot of people are surprised at how much I remember and how accurate it is. But it's so we'll call it like the recipe for connection overall. And we'll add to, so say you're doing okay, one person a month, you have the foundation. And then frequency of interaction is like building on those relationships after you have them. Maybe you invite them out to a cocktail party that you have, you go out to their event, you grab coffee again, whatever it might be. But the recipe for connection and the active listening, like I tell anyone, if you were to go watch the first Harry Potter movie, you could come out and tell me who the characters in the movie were. You could tell me the settings that they moved through. You could tell me how the plot rose to the climax and the falling action and all that stuff. Because it's just story. Like it's easy for you to do that. When people tell me their story, I'm thinking about it in terms of a documentary or the plot of a movie. So when I retell it, it's just the same thing. I'm talking about the locations that they were in. I'm talking about the supporting cast, the characters that were in the movie with them. I'm talking about like their dreams within it. So the framework that I teach people in my talks is the FRIEND framework. It stands for family and relationships. The I is industry, which is like your education into your career path. The E is entertainment, and the ND is needs and dreams. Entertainment being like your hobbies outside of work. So if you really want to have better relationships with the people around you, like build out their timeline by asking questions within each of those categories. And then the key is to like either add the notes to your iPhone note, take notes, write it down afterwards, but to save some of those specifics about their life. And the next time you see them, bring up some of those specifics and you'll help them feel a much deeper sense of being seen and heard than just having a one off conversation.
Huh. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great recipe for folks to kind of really enjoy and lean into. So that's unbelievable. All of it. Rob, it's been just a lot of fun having you on the show. I feel like I've learned a ton just in the hour we've been together, and I'm glad we got an opportunity to meet. Um, just as we're kind of closing, how can people find you?
They can find the journey I document on Instagram. It's Rob's 10K friends. So ROBS10K friends. And then all of my speaking related stuff is on my website, roblawless.com. So it's just my name, LAW, Rob, LAWLESS .com. So yeah, those are the two main things. And then I'm on LinkedIn as just Rob Lawless. And if anyone wants to meet for the project, I'd be happy to meet with them.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, um, I think that's the show for today. We kind of made it. This
Cool.
has been just unbelievable. It's been really just fun leading up to and exploring kind of what you've been doing, and it's really appreciate you sharing and just being so generous with kind of the story around the story in
Yeah.
addition to the story itself. It's a pretty amazing flip that you're in the midst of. So
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. And so with
Thank
go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just thank you for the opportunity and the thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. All right, folks. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side, and we're going to close it out here.